All right, class. Well, welcome to a new week in our class. And this week there's a lot to do, but I think that it won't be as confusing as last week, I promise. Okay? So we just have a couple of things here. This is a slideshow that I'll present later, so that's not on your list. But obviously last week there was quite a bit going on, and hopefully you got everything done. I'll be grading the discussions soon. I do want to encourage you to look back, if you haven't yet, at our Padlet page from the discussion last week so that you can see everybody's pictures and information that's on there from our class, so you can get to know our classmates a little bit better. And also encourage you to, if you haven't looked at everyone's discussion or thoughts on the reading for this week. Now, as a reminder for the readings, make sure that you put, because it's very hard to grade this if you don't, make sure you put what chapter it was, intro in chapter 1 or whatever it was, because, well, last week it would have been the introduction to the textbook. This week it will be chapter 1 from the textbook, as well as maybe another reading too that I'll point out. But make sure you put that like first thing on your Pinterest pin so that I know which one it relates to, because starting this week we'll have 2 weeks of pins, and it'll be hard for me to differentiate the first week from the second, although I try to keep up on it as best as I can. So that's something to remind you of. As far as the activities for this week go, there are some readings, and for those it says read and pin on textbook chapter 1 and the 11 barriers to technology adoption. So those are the 2 things to read for all students, and then graduate students have a little bit more reading each week usually. And this one is an investigation of factors influencing student use of technology in K-12 classrooms using path analysis. So this one is a research report, and so you get right into the research report by Albert Ritzhaupt. And then teachers' perceptions of the barriers to technology integration and practices with technology under situated professional development. Again, another research report, and these ones report on the different barriers that are available, or not available, I guess, that are annoying, that are stopping teachers from using technology in the classroom. And maybe you can relate to this, to some of the things that they find in these studies as a teacher. If you're a teacher in the classroom, you can relate to some of these perhaps. Barriers to technology use in the classroom. So those are some things to read. The pin-on ones are Chapter 1 and 11 Barriers to Technology Adoption for this week. So you'll pin on those. Don't forget for the reading assignment that you need to pin by Wednesday this week. So by the end of Wednesday you should have the reading done and pin on it by then. And then you'll also, as grad students, they'll comment on the other items. Unfortunately, Pinterest has removed the like option, so you can't like someone else's pins, but graduate students are required to comment on at least one, so there should be comments at least in that area. Also, there's a discussion this week, and this week we are not using Padlet like last week. We're using just the built-in D2L discussion tool, so barriers to classroom technology use. And it looks like we've already got one up here, which is great. So you can post anytime on there too, but remember too, and I'm going to start grading this too, is that your discussion post should be posted by Wednesday, and then your responses to, I think it's 3 other, initial response by Wednesday this week, and be sure to respond to at least 2 other students' posts by the end of the week. So make sure you do follow that Wednesday timeline for the discussions and the reading pin that you do. So that's what's going on this week. We're learning about barriers to classroom technology use. And basically barriers, this idea is barriers are the things that stop you from using technology in your classroom as a teacher, or as a student perhaps. It could be looked at from various different perspectives, but that's really what we're talking about. But I did want to give a little bit more of an intro. I didn't have enough time last week to talk about some of these things from the first textbook, so I wanted to talk about how some of the overarching concepts that we're learning about in this class, and one of those is this one: media will never influence learning. So it's kind of an interesting concept that we have in the, I guess it's been an argument in the field. Media will never influence learning. And if you think of media, it's the technologies, it's the internet perhaps, or the way that the instruction is delivered, whether that's through video, whether that's through maybe an online course on D2L, whether that's through another activity. They say that media itself is like a grocery truck, so that's why I have a picture here of a grocery truck. They have it delivers the nutrients or the groceries, I guess, to your door. But think about it. Does it matter which truck of this fleet of trucks delivered the goods to your door? Probably not, right? It probably doesn't really matter which truck delivers, as long as you get the nutrition that you want, right? And that's a metaphor that Richard Clark has used in his discussions on how media will never influence learning. He's saying that media is simply just the delivery vehicle. It's just the vehicle that gets the things to the learners. And the things themselves are what is important. And so he says any necessary teaching method can be delivered to students by many media. So if you think about the groceries and the nutrition that you get from those, what really matters is the nutrition. And in this case, it's the teaching method. And that can be delivered to students by many media. That can be delivered to students in multiple different ways, the teaching method. We're not talking about content either. Content is different. We're talking about the method with which you teach the content to students. He says that's what is most important, not the technology or the media necessarily that you use to deliver it to students by. So that's kind of an interesting, I guess, point of view on media and learning, and technology and learning certainly relates to that too. And we talk now about what does influence learning. Well, obviously it's the learning method or the teaching method on the right there, and the media and technology again do not have a very high effect on that. And so if you read the quotes here, media and their attributes have important influences on the cost or speed of learning, but only the use of adequate instructional methods will influence learning itself. If learning occurs as a result of any exposure to media, the learning is caused by the instructional method embedded in the media presentation, not by the media itself, is what the implication there is. And it says, find the least expensive method in order to attain a learning goal. So it says, well, don't try to use these amazing or expensive media methods to teach. Instead, find the least expensive method in order to attain a learning goal. Now, media does help us, and technology does help us to influence others, to reach audiences in ways that we couldn't reach audiences before. But he's talking just about the learning itself and the academic achievement of students. He says it will not be affected by what media we choose. Instead, it's affected by whatever instructional method that is embedded in it. So I guess those are deep thoughts for thinking about it. But if you think about instructional methods and so you're thinking, well, okay, if media doesn't matter, then what instructional methods should I be sure to embed when I use technology in my classroom? And so forth. Well, we have some good research and some good information about this first principles of instruction. And this is put forth by M. David Merrill. I actually worked closely with him years ago at Brigham Young University, Hawaii. And he talks about how good instruction is centered upon a real-world task, that good instruction activates students' mental models. In other words, it connects to what students already know. Good instruction includes good demonstration, which may include showing students how to do something and being very explicit in the way that we show them. Good instruction includes application, meaning students get to try it out adequately. They get to practice what they are learning in multiple ways after you've demonstrated it to them. And good instruction includes integration, meaning that students apply what they've learned to new or different situations. So these, in a very small nutshell, are the principles of instruction, first principles of instruction that we should use in our teaching and learning. We should give students a real-world task to center their learning upon. We should activate their mental models. We should demonstrate to them what to do or how to do it in a very explicit and clear way. We should let them practice it, give them adequate practice for what they're learning, and we should allow them to try it out in a new area or in something different after they have learned it. So that's first principles of instruction. When you talk about technology with education, this is one good way to think about it, is making sure that students get those quality instructional methods along with the technological tools that we use and have available to us. So this question is, can you design learning experiences tailored to your students that use available resources? Can you help support student-centered learning, including student choices? Can you design assignments and projects that relate to outside of school performances? That's a tough one sometimes, right? Can you design projects and assignments that require students to find, evaluate, and use information? Can you differentiate instruction based on students' prior knowledge and needs? And can you partner with your students in the learning process and exhibit an attitude of humility for learning? So a lot of these things, again, have to relate to quality instructional methods. And you avoid being a robotic teacher, right? Your job will be more safe from being taken over by robots in the future. Actually, I don't think that's very likely to happen anyway. And just a few thoughts from chapter 1. You're going to be reading about this. Why should teachers be technologically skillful? It's important in this day and age, I think, for teachers to be this way. I think even though Clark says that it's the instructional methods that matter, I think that you need to be able to use technology because technology is in our society, and education is irrelevant if it does not reflect our current society, and it prepares students to succeed in that society. So he's going to talk about these automating and informating and some of these concepts. I probably won't go over too many of these in depth, but I do like his pragmatist attitude in the book. He's more of a pragmatist. In other words, he's not going to adopt technology for technology's sake. He's going to try it out, maybe use it for a teaching or learning goal. And that's kind of what this whole discussion is about, right? It's about helping students to learn. It's not about using technology for its own sake. It's about embedding quality instructional methods in the technology that will help students learn and to be more successful. And you'll read about this as well. But I think I like these quotes. Oh, I lost them. Wrong button. I think I like these quotes, though, where he says, student use of technology, these quotes. When students use technology as a tool for completing complex, authentic projects that ask them to solve genuine problems and answer real questions, technology reaches its most powerful instructional potential. And that is true, and that goes back to this idea with M. David Merrill and these tasks and activation, demonstration, application, and so forth. That really is quality instruction. But we have to use technology for quality instruction. We can't just say, let's slap on a little technology into this thing, and hopefully it'll work great. Instead, we got to think about the methods that we're using for instruction as well. And then if we genuinely believe future workers need to be creative problem solvers, why do we still give objective tests measuring the recall of trivia and only assess low-level basic skills on such a regular basis? And so I guess that's a good parting question for this presentation and as well as for the chapter that you'll be reading. And it's kind of an important one to think about. What kinds of activities are really going to be meaningful and what kinds are not? And he's suggesting here that some maybe are not very meaningful. Anyway, so that kind of comes full circle. Technology has to be used with good instructional methods. The assignments in this class that you'll be doing, where you will design some instruction, will ask you to do this. It will ask you to make it differentiated learning or project-based learning or something else, so that it's not only just slapping technology onto something, but it's also thinking about the instructional methods and improving those as we move forward in the class. So I guess that's about it for this week, but you'll have those readings and the barriers to classroom technology use discussion to participate in. And so don't forget to complete those again by Wednesday and then respond to others by Saturday night at the end of the week. And have a good week.